3 out of 5 Americans say they feel lonely. Not occasionally, not after a hard week, every single week, regularly, deeply. And the loneliest people in the country right now are not elderly widows living alone in empty houses. They are people in their 20s, always online, always connected, always visible. 4 out of 5 members of Gen Z say they felt genuinely lonely in the last year. The generation that grew up with a smartphone in hand from the age of 12. In 2023, America's top public health authority declared loneliness a national epidemic. Not a trend, not a feeling. An epidemic. The same word used for disease outbreaks. Because 50 years ago, Americans had none of this. No smartphones, no social media, no algorithms, no way to be connected to 1,000 people at once. And most of them will tell you they almost never felt truly alone. What did they know that we have quietly forgotten? We went back 50 years to find out, and what we found will surprise you. If you grew up in a typical American town in the 1970s, your street knew who you were, not your username, not your profile photo, your actual name, your face, your story. You stepped outside, and you were not walking into anonymous public space. You were walking into a living map of familiar faces, neighbors on porch steps, kids cutting across every lawn on bikes, someone always washing a car in the driveway, an older man trimming his hedge, ready to wave. People shouted across the road. They knew your parents. They knew your siblings. They knew your habits, sometimes more than you wanted them to. It was not perfect. Gossip traveled fast. Privacy was thin, but there was a quiet guarantee built into every single day. If something happened to you, someone would notice, someone would see, someone would care enough to knock and ask. For millions of ordinary Americans, the default setting of daily life was not isolation. Your street acted like an unofficial extended family, messy, noisy, imperfect, but a family all the same. And that was just the street, because what was happening inside those homes told an even bigger story. Step inside a 1970s American home and you notice one thing immediately. It is not quiet. A TV humming in the living room, a radio carrying the evening news from the kitchen, a sibling yelling from somewhere down the hall, a parent calling your name, dinner, phone call, come look at this. Homes were smaller, walls were thinner, doors stayed open, kids shared bedrooms. Relatives showed up unannounced and stayed for a week. Grandparents lived down the block, or right there in the house. That constant presence of other people, their voices, their footsteps, their routines, sent one message every single day without a word. You are part of something. You are not an island, even alone in your room. You were never more than one shout away from another human voice. Loneliness struggles to grow in that kind of noise. But home and neighborhood were only two pieces. Because outside those walls, 1970s Americans had an entire other layer waiting for them. And most people today have never heard it described this way. Outside of home and work, there was a whole other layer to 1970s American life. Diners where the waitress knew your usual before you sat down. Bowling alleys where the same regulars showed up every Thursday, without texting, without planning. Corner bars where the bartender had your whole story memorized. Barbershops, libraries, church halls, union halls. These places were not designed for networking, not for content, not for self-improvement. They were designed for one simple thing. You show up often enough, and you stop being a stranger. You did not schedule anything 2 weeks in advance. You just went to the usual spot, and someone was there. Every nod, every joke, every "how's your mother doing?" Those small moments built something invisible, but real. A feeling that someone had your back, not just your family, but but the whole town around you. But here is what nobody talks about. In the 1970s, the telephone and the television did something almost impossible to imagine today. They pulled people closer together. The family phone lived in one fixed place on the kitchen wall, in the hallway. You did not disappear with it into your room. You stood there, twisting the cord while your mom listened from the next room, laughed at something she was not supposed to hear, or leaned in and said, "Ask them about Saturday." Phone calls were events for specific people at specific times for real reasons. Television worked the same way. One TV, one room, everyone together. You argued about the game. You laughed at the same joke at the exact same second. You watched the same moon landing, the same president resign, the same worlds pro together. We think technology broke connection, but in the 1970s, the same technology built it. The device was never the problem. So what changed around the device? The answer starts with something most Americans never saw coming. If you could zoom into one ordinary day in 1970s America, you would see something that does not go viral today. Routine, same bus stop every morning, same grocery store every Wednesday, same counter, same coffee, same seat, same neighbor at the trash every week. And with those routines came something even more underrated. Small talk. How is work treating you? Kids doing okay? You see the game last night. Nothing profound, nothing that would get a single like, just tiny threads of conversation, tied over and over until they became something real. Psychologists now know that even light daily interactions significantly reduce loneliness. Back then, nobody needed a study to know it. They just felt better when the mailman knew their name, when their day was full of small moments that reminded them someone out there knew they existed. But there was one more layer holding 1970s America together, and most people today have completely forgotten it existed. In 1970, more than 70% of Americans belonged to a church or religious organization. Union membership covered nearly 30% of the workforce. Civic clubs, Elks, Moose, Knights of Columbus, local PTAs, had tens of millions of active members. These were not online groups with thousands of silent followers. These were physical rooms, potluck dinners, choir practices, planning sessions around folding tables on Thursday nights. If you missed a meeting, someone called. If you lost your job, someone knew a guy. If you got sick, someone showed up at the door. Each room gave a person something specific, a role, a schedule, and people who noticed when you were gone. And being needed, even just to fill one seat, kept millions of Americans from ever feeling invisible. So, what happened to all of it? It did not disappear overnight, and the data on exactly how it collapsed is more specific than most people realize. Researcher Robert Putnam spent years tracking what was quietly disappearing from American life. His findings were specific, and they were brutal. Between 1965 and 1995, attendance at club meetings dropped by 58%. Family dinners fell by 43%. Having friends over, down 45%. And the time Americans spent on informal daily socializing, casual visits, spontaneous conversations, neighbors stopping by, fell by nearly 45 minutes every single day. 45 minutes every day across 30 years. That is not a statistic. That is years of human connection that simply stopped happening. And here is what makes this impossible to ignore. All of that happened before social media existed. Social media did not cause the loneliness epidemic. It arrived after the foundation had already cracked and moved straight into the empty space. And what filled that gap next is something most Americans never saw coming. Most people in 1970s America did not walk around thinking, wow, we are so connected right now. They complained about nosy neighbors. They rolled their eyes at family obligations. They got tired of the same potluck every month. They wanted more privacy, more freedom, more space to just be left alone. And over the next few decades, they got exactly what they wished for. But somewhere in that trade, they lost something they never thought to protect. Most people only realize what they had after it was already gone. So, when older Americans say people were not so lonely back then, they are not imagining it. They are not being naive. They are remembering a world where being deeply alone was genuinely hard to pull off. But being alone and being lonely are two very different things, and that difference is exactly where this story turns. In the 1970s, you could take a long Sunday drive by yourself and feel completely fine. That was solitude you chose, inside a world that still held you. Today, people say they feel lonely in crowds, in offices full of coworkers, on college campuses with thousands of other students. The difference is not how many people are nearby. The difference is whether you feel seen, needed, and known by anyone at all. Research shows that well over half of young adults today struggle with serious persistent loneliness, while they spend about 7 hours a day on screens. 7 hours connected to everyone, known by no one. When that happens, being alone stops feeling like a choice. And this is the moment when the story of the 1970s collides with the story of Gen Z. Right now, something unexpected is happening. A significant portion of Gen Z, the generation raised entirely on smartphones and social media, is quietly pushing back against the hyper-connected, always-on life they were handed. And the way they are doing it looks, surprisingly, a lot like the 1970s. They are quitting alcohol in record numbers, not because someone told them to, because they do not want to rent confidence for one night and spend 3 days paying for it. They are walking away from brand names and status symbols. A growing share are driving used cars with no monthly payment rather than financing a $50,000 truck they cannot actually afford. They call this de-influencing, a deliberate rejection of the pressure to buy, perform, and signal wealth online. They are logging off, starting game nights, book clubs, and small offline friend groups, people who meet in real rooms in real time. They are choosing what some call JOMO, the joy of missing out, to make room for connections that are slower, quieter, and more honest. In a strange, unplanned way, Gen Z is doing intentionally what 1970s Americans did without thinking twice, building a life where you do not have to earn your right to belong every single day. And what that means for the rest of us is something worth paying attention to. If you have watched this far, something in this story probably hits close to home. Maybe you remember when people just showed up without checking a calendar. Or maybe you are younger and you only caught the faint last echo of that world. The 1970s were not a perfect time. Plenty was wrong, plenty was unfair, but they got one structural thing right. Connection was built into everyday life. You did not have to be brave. You did not have to be interesting. You just had to step outside. Today, stepping outside takes energy. Reaching out feels risky. Belonging takes work that earlier generations got almost by accident. That is the real loss, not the music, not the prices. The loss of a world that made it hard for people to disappear completely. But here is the part nobody can take from us. The basic moves have not changed. one regular place you keep going back to, one night of the week you leave open for real people, one person you decide to check on again and again. That is all it took in the 1970s. No app, no algorithm, no perfect script. And if enough of us start doing that now, Gen X, Gen Z, whoever is watching this, then in 30 or 40 years, someone may look back on this time and say, they lived through a lonely age, but they were the ones who quietly turned it around.